Om. 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 Sahana Bhavatu. Sahanau Bhunaktu. Saha Viryam Karavavahai. Tejasvinavadhitamastu. Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shuchau deshe pratisthaya sthiramasanamatmanaha natyushchitam nati nicham chailajinakushottaram tatraikagram manah kritva yata chittendriyakriyah upavishyasane yunjat yogamatma samam kaya shiro grivam dharayannachalam sthiraha samprekshanasikagram swam dishashchanavalokayan prashantatma vigatabhihi brahmacharivrate sthitaha Mana Samyamyamachittaha Yukta Asita Matparaha Yunjannevam Sadatmanam Yogi Niyatamanasaha Shantim Nirvana Paramam Mat Stamsthamadi Gachati Natyashnatastu yogosti na chaikantamanashnataha na chati swapnashilasya jagrato naiva charjuna yuktahara viharasya yukta cheshthasya karmasu Yuktasvapnavabodhasya yogo bhavati dukkhaha yada viniyatam chittam atmanyevavatisthate nispruha sarvakamebhyaha yukta ityuchyate tada Yatha dipo nivatasthaha Ningate sopamasmrita Yogino yata chittasya Yunjato yogamatmanaha Yatro paramate chittam Niruddham yoga sevaya Yatra chaivatmanatmanam pashyannatmani tushyati. Hari Om and Namaskaram, everyone. Hari Om. So as we embarked on the study of the second topic of the sixth chapter, where he is talking about the internal or rather the external and the internal disciplines required for meditation. That's verses 10 to 18. The 10th verse, which we did, he said, let the yogi remaining in solitude, alone, seated, with the body and mind controlled, constantly practice union with the self, free from desire and possession. Withdraw from the world externally. So it is starts with external withdrawal and then internal withdrawal. Externally withdraw from the world, either you choose a place where you're alone when you're in solitude, as he says, or choose a time when you're by yourself. So one is where you have to be available when the world comes to a halt. Everything in life, everything, even in a day's proceedings, you find things slow down, isn't it? The time comes where relatively hardly anything is happening. Almost things come to a grinding halt. So early hours where nothing is happening, you are available. Either the world comes to a halt, or you can consciously slow down your thoughts, whichever is possible, whichever is convenient, whichever can happen, you should embark on it. These are the necessities. Remaining in solitude, you're alone. Remember, you can't do spiritual edification, can't be a collective effort. It is an individualistic journey. So you are alone, seated. The moment you are active, action symbolizes extroversion. Organs of action, when your organs of action are engaged, hands and feet is an organ of action. So when you are jogging or cycling or hiking or swimming, or you're out for a walk, you can't meditate because it's an extroverted activity. So therefore, by being seated when you are not engaging your organs of action, you are not extroverted, you're introverted. So you can only meditate when you are seated. Therefore, he mentions it. He doesn't take it for granted. You're seated with your mind and body control. Body control means you have to have your right physical posture, where an ideal posture, you don't feel the presence of your body. The body doesn't become a hindrance while you're meditating. So your body is well groomed, well disciplined, healthy, and fit, so that the body doesn't become a disturbance for your meditation. Imagine when you're sitting and meditating, yo, my neck is hurting, my back is hurting, my toe is hurting, na everybody. All your attention will be on the neck or the back or the toe. Atman, Brahman, out of focus. So if you want to focus on the higher, the lower has to be out of focus. How to be out of focus? You don't feel its presence. So the body doesn't become a hindrance, shouldn't become a distraction to you. So if you want your body to help you, then you must keep in good repair now. So why am I exercising? Not to create a six-pack, not to show off your body, not to be overly conscious of your physique, but just to keep yourself. The vehicle must be kept in good repair so that it will serve me in that stage where the body doesn't become a hindrance. You can't be sitting in a recliner chair and doing meditation. So you need to be able to And the most comfortable posture is the Ardha Padmasana. There's no greater comfortable posture than that. So a little bit of yoga, a little bit of stretching, a little bit of activity, so that your body is kept in good repair. So the body serves you if at all you want to meditate. And if you're not able to, whatever makes you comfortable, be seated in that. You're not disqualified just because you can't fold your legs or you can't squat. Doesn't matter. It's just conducive. And then he says, with your mind control, I'm not going to go into it because as you keep going, as I've said, only 28th verse is going to give us that real crux of meditation. Till then, he's going to repeat it. Constantly practice union with the self. Now, when can you constantly practice union with the self? Only when your mind is free from desire and possession. Nirashaha. Ashaha is desire. Nirashaha is no desire. Aparigraha, without possession. So possession is always for things. What do you mean possession? It only means possessiveness. So without possession means attachment. Attachment is towards things you have. Asha, desire, is for things you do not have. So you are free from attachment to what you have. You're free from the persecution of what you don't have. So you don't keep chasing for acquiring more, nor are you slave to what you've already acquired. Only when you're relatively free from desire and possessiveness, that is when you can truly lodge your mind onto something higher. This is an inevitable truth, an essential prerequisite that is required. One of the essential prerequisites is mental availability. Now, what distracts you is acquisition and enjoyment. Again, the same theme puts it in a different way. Right? So this is what we have done. So let's move on. You'll find the thought flow is very much similar. So don't be bored. It just tells you the strict requirements. No master will repeat himself. And if somebody is repeating himself, you have to stand up and take note. And I'm telling so because nobody is taking note. Everybody is plunging into it without having an ounce of respect to the Jagat Guru. Nobody has an ounce of respect. You have disregarded the Guru of all Gurus and you say, my Guru says so, this Guru says so, that Guru says so, and you're plunging into it. These masters are very, very clear. They don't mince words. Thereafter is up to you. But he's repeating. My job is to repeat because he's repeating. So don't be angry at me. So yeah, verse 11, please. Shuchau deshe pratisthaya sthiramasanamaatmanaha natyushchitam nati nicham chailajina kushottaram. Shuchau deshe pratisthaya sthiramasanamaatmanaha natyushchitam nati nicham chailajina kushottaram. Shuchau deshe pratisthaya, having established a clean place. Shuchau deshe, you can't be sitting in a cowshed and meditating. So therefore, find a clean place, man. At least while you're meditating, clean up your place, where you're sitting. There must be certain sanctity because it's an auspicious act. Let there be auspiciousness. You're invoking the Lord. So how conscious you would be, how divine should the place be. So having established in a clean place, a firm seat of his own. Sthiram asanam atmanaha. So you have a place dedicated to yourself. I'll explain that. Na atyushchitam atinicham. Not too high, not too low. With cloth Chaila Jina Kushottaram, with cloth, skin, and kusha grass thereon. Kushottaram. Now, can you imagine the detail he's getting into? It is very, very important. You know, I can only draw a parallel. It to imagine you are launching a rocket. If you have to launch a rocket into outer space, it is mind-boggling. It is beyond any of our little minds. All the preparation that goes into for the rocket to launch, isn't it? And it's perhaps from the date of conception to the actual date of launch, perhaps it's a evolution of, let's say, 5-10 years of work. And even when 2 days before, week before, 10 days before the launch, even 1 hour before the launch, 5 minutes before the launch, 2 minutes before the launch, the last 60 seconds before the launch, there are so many checkpoints. Check, 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 check. If any one thing doesn't meet the check, they will halt the launch because it will blow up in the next minute. It's a disaster. I'm just drawing a parallel to meditation is like launching a rocket. The amount of preparation, the amount of detail you got to get into, and everything has to be picture perfect so that your mind gets lodged onto the transcendental. The same principle, you're launching the rocket out of the gravitational pull, you're lodging the mind free from the terrestrial entanglements. You want the mind to be lodged onto the transcendental reality without any grip of the terrestrial attachment and desire. You want to be free from it. So you got to do. So in order to do that, you need to have extraordinary preparation, extraordinary detail. So he's going into the detail. So having established a firm seat, anything unstable may actually disturb your concentration. In fact, you know, from the time we have got onto these online classes, I don't know how many of you have noticed, I'm sitting on a chair which has 5 wheels underneath it. I can't be sitting on an asana here where I'm at a desk. Ideally, where I would sit and do my study in the next room, it's an asana, where it's a firm place at the table where I can do, but I don't think I'll be able to set up this there where I have a firm seat. So I'm sitting on a chair, which is contrary to what he said, firm seat. If you allow me, I'll go for a little checker. I just go one round, I'll be rotating. Like a small kid, first time sitting on a rotating chair, you know, you will just go round and round. It's just unstable. So you need to have a firm seat of your own, Atmana. When you create that space for yourself, it is not meant for anybody else. You may say, sir, is it not very arrogant and egoistic and very possessive? Is it not going to be why I and my here also? No. It's not an egoistic possession. It is only to ensure that you cultivate a certain bhavana, a certain feeling. Everything is so carefully designed. Everything is so carefully tailor-made to your requirement. I don't know how many of you have actually come and seen where we sit and study. You come to the center, you all are welcome. It is your place. You can come and have a look at how we have this small place where, you know, we sit. So I sit and study there. It's a simple thing with a cushion at the back, a little cushion down so that it's not too cozy that you fall out to sleep, or not too hard that it starts your ankles and your knees start hurting you after a while. So just little comfort, a table just right so that you have your essential things there, and everything so placed well so that you have everything in your reach, everything required for you. and everything serves a purpose, and thereafter nothing else distracts you. Even to apply your head to these studies, you need to have a place of sanctity. So I would recommend you all, don't sit on the bed, in the couch, or on the sofa, or on the dining table and do this study. Vasantama, you remember what I advised you last time when I came home?
I was just recollecting that. Just
recollecting.
I was thinking now more seriously.
So then she didn't take me seriously. Now she's taking me seriously. It is so important. You know, it is very, very important. Now, why I recommended her? Because when I see her, for her age, and she's so agile and flexible, I'm certain she can, and she does yoga and all. So I know she can afford to sit down. You know, you don't want to invite trouble. Others may have a concern physically, you will not be able to sit down. But if you're able to, ideal is to sit down on the floor with little comfort, as a little cushion, so that you are not able to, you're not punishing yourself. But it is very, very important, ma.
Thank you.
It's a very, yes, it's a very auspicious thing. So first, take care of the asana. It's like when you want to do puja or want you to do yajna, don't you create the kund? Don't you create the mandir where you want to plant, or what you want to pratishthan of the god, the deity? Or you just bring some table or some chair and you just put and start worshipping? Oh, there's an old rack lying there, no? Why don't you bring that? We'll convert into a puja area where we'll plant the deity, install the deity and do puja. And the mother, you don't do Ilya. So also, first thing you all should do is create a place of your own, a place where it is not accessible to anyone. And the moment anybody accesses it, I know. In fact, Vijay, can you just tilt the computer behind? Just to the table. In fact, you see Vijaya there, she wave your hand so they know where you are. So the place where that's in the house. This in the house, where that's the place where I sit and study. That's typically an area where I would study. So just enough light so you are in your own space, where you just have whatever you need. A simple, you don't have to start investing anything. Just a simple table with 4 legs is enough. I tell you, it works wonders. It is very, very important. Why I wanted to, something you can see. The same thing is replicated in the center here. It can do that, So if somebody comes and accesses your place, because the pencil is not put in the right place, the eraser is touched, I know somebody has tampered it. Not available for anyone else. So if somebody comes and takes the pencil, I said, put that back there. I will give you a pencil, I'll give another pencil. I'm so particular that pencil is used there. And that pencil is 0.5 lead. In the center is 0.7 lead. So I'll use 0.5 for something, 0.7 for something. It is not OCD. Huh? This fellow is a real OCD case. There's no OCD case and all. What is OCD, Annapurnama? Theriyuma OCD na? I know in your mind only that was running. This fellow, I never knew. This fellow, Peria OCD case, this fellow. Huh? Adha nannikringliya?
Guruji, because I have OCD for, I am a Virgo, and everyone say we are 3 of us are Virgos in the house. So my daughter is not a Virgo. So she screams, you people are eating my head. We are all perfectionists and everything should be in the back in the place, same way. And everything should be clean and arranged like that. So I can understand what you said. So that's why I was laughing.
No, I understand, right? So that obsessive compulsive disorder, it's not a mental disorder. It is trying to align everything in its place so that it starts associating, reminding you, or rather anything that is distractive should not be in its place. It's not be there because you're embarking on this study, or ideally speaking here in the context of meditation. So a place, a clean place, a place of your own. You don't part with that place, or you don't part with your books. Other day, Jama messaged me, Guruji, can I have a particular book? Where is she? I told her, I will see if I have a spare. That was my immediate message to her. She wanted a book, which she knows I have. And she said, can I borrow that book? I didn't say no. I said, if I have a spare, I'll give. I will never give my book. Never. That is my wealth. You can't part with these things. People conveniently part with books and then don't know whom they gave. Did it come back or not? That is the sanctity to you have to something. These are the tools to your realization. How can you part with them? No, I will not. So you should not. So create, it's not being possessive, please. You can take anything else, but not this. So it's that kind of an attitude you have to the place. Again, he says a seat not too high. If you're sitting too high, perhaps you will feel insecure. Too low, suggesting perhaps, those days they were sitting in the woods, somewhere in the Himalayas, somewhere they are, don't know, some coffin might crawl, my snake might crawl, you feel very insecure. So not too high, not too low, with cloth, skin and kusha grass. Oh, now I must go shopping now. Cloth irke, kusha grass, and now I must start go hunting also. Sudhakar garu, no funny ideas, huh? Correct, sir. I've been having all the while wanting to go for hunting. Now this is the reason. Let me go and satisfy that one desire also. Let me get deer skin. Spotted deer is better. So you don't have to go hunting now because you need skin. Bhagavad Gita says you must have skin. Those days they did. It doesn't have to be literally. You can fold a little quilt, but I would not do that. Create a dedicated thing which is only for that. You can't use the same blanket or a quilt while sleeping and then you fold it and you sit and meditate or study. Illa. Ena Sudhakar garu?
Yes, sir. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
I am being targeted.
No hunting, please. Huh?
No, I am being targeted. I don't know why.
Targeted. Oh my God.
I am afraid if you ask, you are going to ask me some question.
Not at all. Don't feel insecure at all, sir. I take the freedom. That's the reason I'm asking you, or rather commenting.
Thank you. Thank you.
No problem. No. So he's just talking about the necessary requirements, which you would do in any activity, more so for an activity of this nature. Now, you may say, sir, why are we so particular? You mean to say these small things would disturb them, would annoy them? See, you should rise to such a level that nothing should distract you. Nothing should be a hindrance. Nothing should be a hindrance to your thought to the higher. However, you need to take care of everything. A small seed should not disturb you. So you rise to such a level where nothing will bother you, but yet you take extreme care of everything. Now I'm reminded of a concept, which I don't know whether you would be familiar, the concept about spiritual quotient and material quotient. These are two essential quotients in any human being, isn't it? Now, spiritual quotient is measured by your ability to be self-reliant. Your material quotient is measured by the actual wealth. What is your material status today? Now, what should be the ideal relationship of the material and spiritual quotient? Sudhakar Garu, every human being has these two quotients. My question is, what should be the essential relationship between these two quotients?
I do not know the correct proportion, but the spiritual quotient should be more than the material quotient. That's what I feel.
Why do you say so?
So naturally, we'll be more elevated if the spiritual quotient is there, and we'll have the judging power in doing the things, and we'll be more successful if we use the spiritual quotient, which I am doing right now. Previously, I was feeling the lack of this knowledge, and I sometimes feel, suppose if I had this knowledge previously, I would have been far better successful there.
So you agree that you need to be materially successful as well, isn't it?
Of course, but material success definitely follows when you are spiritually strong.
Now I come back to the question again. Ideally speaking, what should be the proportion?
I think probably around 75 to 25%.
Okay. No, I'm not saying anything. I just want to get your understanding. Let me open it up to others.
That is only my vague imagination, but I don't know exactly. But I feel, it should be more as you grow up and if you want to be more successful in your career.
See, success is determined by a material quotient. Okay. Spiritual quotient determines how contented, how self-sufficient, how peaceful, how mentally comfortable you are, isn't it?
But
now, these are two independent quotients. Now, my question is, what should be the proportion?
Balancing.
No, I've got your view. I don't want to deliberate further. I just wanted the whole objective of questioning is to make you all think, not to gauge your understanding. It's not to gauge how well you understand or how wrong you are. I know you understand me, rightly so. Especially, the people keep walking into the classes. They keep some of them come for the first time, and they shouldn't have a perception. Sometimes they could be put off by one session. So sometimes it becomes an obligation for me to convey this message, not to put off or gauge, because in fact, invariably so, people who come for the first time, what are they doing? What would they rather do? Most likely do. They're constantly evaluating you. Rightfully or wrongly, so they're evaluating you. So, and someone out there could be an ardent student of this knowledge, but they should not be put off by anything that may find of a discord, isn't it? That's the reason I keep, even to you all, there always something can put you off, isn't it? All right. Yes, Sitaramji.
In my view, Guruji, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
In my view, there is no reason for any correlationship between the material quotient and the spiritual quotient. You can have a very high level of spiritual quotient without having any material quotient whatsoever. In fact, I feel, practically speaking, if your material quotient is very high, it hinders your spiritual quotient, because you have so much of wealth to take care of that you have no time left to take care of your spirit. That's my view.
It'll be interesting listening to all your inputs. All right, it's interesting. Yes. Anybody else? Shashikanji.
I believe.
Yes, sir.
I believe that the material quotient and the spiritual quotient, maybe to begin with, need to be, maybe equal. Like a bird flying with, two wings. If I identify that one is a material being, the other one being a spiritual being, I also believe maybe on the growth and the advancement of spirituality, probably the material things can come down, but reasonably that is, maybe balancing between, material quotient and spiritual quotient.
So you say to begin with, it should be balanced, and as you move on, it should tilt in the favor of spiritual quotient.
I need to ask you here one thing, because the way that you are, just progressing, at the end of the day, we have a goal. Attaining that goal, we need to also reach the suppressing or maybe the controlling or get rid of our desires and other thing. So practically the spiritual, the material things are maybe getting down, right? Spiritually we are advancing. Simultaneously the material things are getting that. I have maybe an understanding something like that. When you reach maybe the nothingness sort of a stage, what is the need of a material quotient?
No. See, I agree, and I think along with you. In fact, just thinking along further, if you just go back to how I've defined material quotient, I'm not saying material quotient as desire, craving, obsession for wealth. I'm not talking of that. Material quotient is how much resources you have today with you. In layman's term, bank balance. Whether you have enough wealth with you to provide for your necessities. I'm not talking of craving or obsession or greed or desire for more. I'm not talking of that as material quotient. Material quotient is the actual wealth you have. That material quotient may appear less or more depending on your spiritual quotient. That is yet another perspective. But there are these two essential quotients in a human's life right from the moment you're born. Like a child is born, a child could be born very wise, but a child could be born with in dire circumstances. A child could be born to a laborer. So the father has to work as a laborer just to feed for basic necessities. But the child has spiritual brilliance, means brilliant child. But there is an imbalance there, isn't it? You get what I'm saying? So, rightfully so. In fact, spiritual maturity is when your cravings and obsession and attachment subside. That is what is spiritual quotient, isn't it?
Exactly.
You can't have both. Spiritual quotient is high and also material cravings also high. Then we are blowing hot and cold. They are two different things. You get it, sir?
Exactly.
Okay, right. There's namaskaram, sir. In fact, there is a very realistic approach to it. We don't have to be theoretical and then say it is okay for classes like this, but it's not necessary right to live a life. No, I'm talking in a practical sense. So I may have the spiritual quotient, but there may not be any resources for me to take this knowledge further. Even if I have to expand, if I have a vision, you said, if you have a goal, my goal is to set up an institution. It's not an obsession or desire, but it's very much there from the day this organization was formed, that someday there will be a wisdom academy where this knowledge should be taught. If that were to materialize, it needs the material resources. It needs, isn't it? So it is a necessity for any action, any fulfillment, any objective. So we should not perceive materiality or a negative quotient as a negative, as negatively we should not perceive it, which perhaps could be the perception here and there. We're not saying, sir, wealth is not negative. Why are we perceiving it negative? Don't we worship Goddess Lakshmi? So why are we construing wealth as negative? It should not be. Okay. Yeah. Let's hear from Annapurnama. You wanted to say something?
I just wanted to put forth the thought like spiritual quotient and material quotient are inversely proportioned because one might have a lot of resources, but the thought or what he does with the resources that will see that will increase the spiritual quotient if the resources are shared and used for selfless things. The spiritual quotient goes up. So they are
Correct.
inversely proportionated.
So this is not an ideal state. There are people in society who are flushed with material surplus, but they would not part with to advance the benevolence of others. They would just acquire, hoard, and aggrandize only for their own themselves. So this is
Then the
not an
spiritual
ideal
quotient
state.
remains.
They are very poor. So when you say inversely proportional, perhaps they have 80% material quotient, only 20%. So their thinking is very gross. They would not part with 10 rupees. So that's a large percent of the society are like that. They would not give it. For some reason they're holding on to it. Okay. Siddharamanji, you have to expand your short abbreviations. You said MQ. What is MQ, sir?
Quotient.
Aha. For a moment, I have got lost. What is MQ? Now explain yourself. What are you trying to say, sir?
Bank balance, I meant it should be net worth. Net worth includes assets and cash and
Sir,
all types of wealth.
Please remember, you are talking to very poor accounts background. Zero accounts I have background. That's the reason I zero knowledge how to handle. All somebody else takes care of the accounts. I have no idea. Credit, debit, I get confused once in a while. So you must talk to a material illiterate.
What I meant is material is not only in the form of cash in bank.
That is understood. That much I know, sir.
So it can be spread over in different forms in different places. The whole thing, assets minus liabilities, is called net worth of an individual. So
yeah,
that can be called as a material quotient. That's what I mean.
Correct, sir. Now answer my question, sir. What is the ideal state of the spiritual quotient and the material quotient? What should be the ideal state?
I feel both are independent.
No, I'm not saying they're dependent.
Dependent and not dependent.
Sir, it's like saying you have both arms, or you have upper part of the body, lower part of the body. What should be the strength in the upper part and lower part?
No, the spiritual quotient also you have defined as self-reliant. See, self-reliant means he is having enough for him to live and sustain, and he is on his own.
No. Self-reliant means there is enough wealth, but he doesn't depend on it. I mentally don't need. See, okay, I think we'll have to define self-reliance or spiritual quotient. Spiritual quotient is where you are happy by yourself. You're self-sufficient. You don't need the external world to make you comfortable and happy. You don't need a assured job. You don't need a fat salary package. You don't need various luxuries and comforts to make you secure. I'm happy without it. I'm contented without it. I'm self-sufficient. That is their spiritual quotient. Material quotient is you may have a secure job, you have a very healthy salary package, your net worth is very healthy. Now, these two are independent factors. My question is, what is the ideal human state of these two quotients? Because these two are essential. You can't say, I will do one with the other, one without the other. You can't do one without the other.
80-20.
Huh?
80 spiritual, 20. Because 80-20 is the extraordinary formula one can apply everywhere. Even here.
But I will not apply here. Hari Om. I am very candid with my view here. You may disagree with me, but it's not applicable here. Sir, you need resources, don't you? Everyone needs resources in life to carry on. You had to educate your children. Didn't you need resources? You had to provide for the medical expenses. Did you not need resources? Now, how spiritually you were then is not the point. How spiritually wise you are now is not the point. The wealth you had then, the wealth you had now is different. Yes, the spiritual quotient then, the spiritual quotient now is different. But I'm talking as an ideal human being. Ideal.
50-50.
What? It takes so much to bring you out of the 80-20.
Because I am thinking of a case where he has completed all his obligations and he is in the spiritual path where he
thinking of yourself, huh? All right, no, fair enough. Yeah, Harish ji.
Hari Om Guruji. Guruji, you would like me to say something?
I thought you wanted to say something.
I'm sorry, Guruji, but I don't seem to agree with what has been said so far. To my mind, these are two completely separate issues, the material quotient and the spiritual quotient. Quotient, by definition, has a numerator and a denominator, right? So a spiritual quotient or a material quotient have to have, each of them has to have a numerator and a denominator. I would like to believe that the material quotient is a ratio of what you have versus what you need. It's resources versus demand or needs. So the ideal situation is that it should be one. You have enough for what you need. You neither have too little nor do you have too much. So ideally, the material quotient should be one. If you look at the spiritual quotient, I would like to define it as, and Setuji, pardon me, this is almost like net worth, but what I'm going to say is not debt equity, but it is D by E, where I could say deeds versus over divided by ego. So when you talk of more self-sufficiency or self-reliance or being able to survive with less or whatever you defined as self-reliance, then you're obviously talking that D by E should be as high as possible. The ideal situation is where you have zero ego. It's completely sacrificial, and therefore the deeds are really infinite, which is what you're saying is that when you have no ego, your potential is limitless, right? So D by E, if that is the spiritual quotient, then all that one can say is spiritual quotient should be as high as possible. Obviously, a spiritual quotient of 20 is better than a spiritual quotient of 19. You have less of ego for the same amount of deed. So that's the way I would look at it. So I would like to have as high a spiritual quotient as possible and a material quotient as close to 1 as possible. Sorry, Guruji.
No, you don't have to be sorry, but I am sorry for how you all are not thinking along with me. Each one of you are independently giving equations, independently thinking, independently coming to conclusions. My job is to give you a line of thought with certain parameters. You're changing the very definition of what spiritual quotient, material quotient. That is not the objective of the question, of the discussion. I did not ask you all, how do you define this and that? I have given a pre-definition and asked you all, what do you think about this? It is very easy for me to comment and move on. Are you thinking along with me? You're not thinking along with me. You're giving your definitions. Did I ask you any one of your definitions? No. Whether it be Setuji giving 80-20, I'm not giving your definitions here. I'm not asking for your understanding of what spiritual quotient is or material quotient. Now, I am very ignorant. As you said, I did not know quotient as denominator and numerator. I said, I'm very ignorant. Chuma, I use different terms, but I am not as sound as you all. But I'm only saying the end product. Quotient means something that is left with, isn't it? Spiritual quotient that I'm left with. I have defined spiritual quotient as the capacity to be self-sufficient, self-reliant, a state of contentment, happiness. Write down, for God's sake, please write down. Can you please write, Hadishji, for everybody else? Spiritual quotient is measured. I am using it. I could be completely wrong. I'm not saying I'm right, but we are approaching the concept with these definitions. Spiritual quotient means you are self-sufficient, self-reliant, contented, and happy. Correct, Rajima? These are the 4 things I've said. Material quotient is measured with how much resources you have today with you. How much resources you have. Now the question is, ideally speaking, what should be the proportion of the spiritual and material quotient? And I said these 2 are essential in one's progression of life, isn't it? Now, the converse of spiritual quotient is where you have more desires, you have greed, you're dissatisfied, you grumble, you're disgruntled. This is the state of lack of spiritual person. Means exactly the opposite, where he is not happy. You get what I'm saying? Now, an ideal state, what the Shastras talk about. An ideal state is to live a life of a Raja Rishi. Is to live a life of a Raja Rishi. The Raja is a king. Rishi is a sage. It is not my concept. It is an established truth of how history had men who had the status of Raja Rishis. They were royalty. They were inundated with comforts and luxuries and wealth. And yet they lived the highest spiritual state of utter detachment to it. They were mentally ready to walk out of it any day. They were so detached to it. They had no mental value. They were self-sufficient. They were happy, reveling in themselves. But yet they had all that abundance of materiality with them, of comforts and conveniences with them. This is what the Shastras have exalted. Lord Rama was a Raja Rishi. Dasharatha, King Janaka, these are all men. History has repeated time and again of these great men who lived a life of material opulence. They lived a life of detachment where they parted, like Annapurnama said, what is the point of having amassed wealth when you can't part with for the needs of others? When you hoard and acquire for your own well-being? Where wealth accumulates, men decay. That spiritual decadence comes in when you don't part with wealth, part with your resources and conveniences. So the ideal relationship of wealth and spirituality is to have the wealth and be detached to it. So ideal state is, Vedanta says you must advance spiritually, you must advance materially, and there's no limit to it. You can acquire as much as you want, but without greed and obsession for more and more. It's a sheer product of your efforts, the sheer produce of your dynamic life. The Shastras say you live 100 years. When you live 100 years of active life, what happens? There's sheer production, isn't it? You produce. Where in the Shastras have they said you should not produce? Tell me. I challenge you. Tell me where it is they have said. It's your own imagination. Shastras have never said you must take retirement. What retirement? There's no retirement in Shastra. They said, carry on working for a higher cause as long as you want. You're not working only to fulfill your desire and possession. No, you're working to serve a larger cause. And when you work for the higher, lower comes. It comes, isn't it? So you will have abundance of wealth with you, but you will also rise to such a level that it doesn't matter to you. You have it, but you mentally don't need it. I repeat, you will have the resources, you mentally don't need it. Example, you have 2 cars, chauffeur-driven cars of yours driving. You're happy to take a 10-minute walk to the bus station and take a bus to your work. Mental capacity is you're happy to go by a public transport when you have 2 chauffeur-driven cars waiting for you. The opposite of that is you're going by bus, and every time a luxury car passes by, you say, I wish I had that car. So nice, isn't it? Look at them, how nice they're enjoying life. Look at me, whatever state I am. Every time you look at something, you only aspire for it. You have a desire, you have greed, you're envious at something. So you must work in that spirit of service and sacrifice, that materiality becomes a byproduct. At the same time, you evolve to an extent that you're detached to it. Does it make sense to you all? So please, there is no percentage here. It should not be, they are not dependent, they are independent factors, and both these factors are essential for life. You can't live one without the other. Tell me anyone who can live without material resources. You must be joking. What are you talking? Which world are you coming from? Imaginary world. You live in that imaginary world of yours. You want to go and buy a loaf of bread, you go and give a spiritual lecture to that fellow. Is he going to give you a loaf of bread to you? What 1% material wealth you're talking about? Which world are you talking about? Be realistic. Be real. So you can't live one without the other. You need it. Now, how much you need depends on your spiritual quotient. If I'm spiritually, let's say if I'm spiritually evolved 10%, I need 90% of the world to keep me contented, because this is the imbalance. 10% developed, I need 90% of the world. Harishi, can you just please capture this? Very simple terms. 10% developed spiritually, you need 90% of the world. Okay, 10% developed, I need 90% of the world, but I only have 30% of material resources. I only have 30%. That's my current state. I only have 30%. So the deficit is minus 60. That minus 60 deficit is known as hell. This is the definition of hell. I'm 10% spiritually developed. I need 90% of the world, but sadly, my material world quotient is only 30%, minus 60% shortfall that I go through a hell because of my greed, desire, longing, wanting. I am unhappy, discontented, I'm envious. I'm only aspiring and wanting, never happy with what life I have got. Why? I'm only 10% developed. This is one part of the equation. Now, the second part of the equation is, let's say I rise the spiritual quotient to 70%. My material requirements are only 30%. But I have got 80% of the world with me. The plus 50% is heaven. I'm in a heavenly state because my mental capacity has made me happy with little. If I have got anything more, it's heavenly for me, isn't it? So Vedanta helps you in both ways. It helps you to reduce your needs. It helps you to increase your net assets. So you're rich both ways. Wake up to the reality what Vedanta has been roaring to mankind. Reduce your mental needs, increase your net assets. You are in bliss. I am happy with nothing, and yet I've got so much with me. Now I've got everything. I'm not happy with what I have because you're spiritually poor, you're mentally rich, man. But if you become spiritually rich and produce actions in such a way that it advances materially, you'll always be happy with little, but you have far more than what you need. It's an outstanding concept. And you have to believe that this is the reality. And this is what is the Shastra is talking of Raja Rishi. Today, only Rajas are there. All materially wealthy fellows are there. No mental capacities. There is no detachment. There is only to what extent you can become crude. I keep hearing. It's not that I'm blind to all this. I keep hearing from my relatives. I keep hearing from people. I keep hearing from how they behave for property, running behind money, and what all they do is just, I can't even, you know about all of it. So I lend my ears when people come and share. I come to know this, to what extent they go just for that. Somehow I want to grab that piece of land. I've grabbed it. I've got it. So what? Somehow I want to grab it. You know, what is the worth of that property? So what? No, not so what. Please acquire, rightfully so. But to what extent you go to get that, it just talks of how shallow you are spiritually. Very shallow, very, very shallow. Now, we have not gone off, concept-wise, we have gone off at a tangent, but it's all stemmed from, remember, you don't need to, you're not so fragile that you need a clean place to meditate. You will be able to keep your mind aloft on the higher, even if things go wrong, but still you are conscious of keeping a place clean and tidy so that it's conducive. You have to sit in a cow shed and meditate, you will meditate, no problem. But you will prefer to sit in a place of quietude and hygiene. You get what I'm saying? We started off from that, and then I just wanted to touch on this. A very, don't misread it. You just have to understand Vedanta helps you to advance both ends, not one at the cost of the other. All right. Okay. We will chant 12 and 13 together, please. 12, Chief first. Yeah. If you can play after chanting 12, we can play 13 as well. Okay. So we'll chant 12 twice and then 13 twice. Tatraikagram manah kritva yata chittendriya kriyaha upavishyasane yunjat yogamatma vishuddhaye. Tatraikagram manah kritva yata chittendriya kriyaha upavishyasane yunjat yogamatma vishuddhaye. Samam kaya shiro grivam dharayannachalam sthiraha samprekshanasikagram swam dishashchanavalokayan. Samam kaya shiro grivam dharayannachalam sthiraha samprekshanasikagram swam dishashchanavalokayan. If you go back to 12 for the translation, please. Yeah, okay. The 12th translation is there, having made the mind one-pointed, where the previous verses he spoke about, there having made the mind one-pointed with the function of the mind and senses controlled. I already said he's going to repeat it, so don't get restless. With the functions of the mind and senses controlled, seated on the seat, let him practice yoga, atma shuddhaye, for the purification of the self. 13. Holding the body, neck and head erect, still and firm, gazing at the tip of the nose and not looking around. So these are the two verses chanted back to back because there's a continuity of thought. Yes, sir. Wonderful. So, functions of the mind and senses control. What is the functions of the mind to be controlled here? Subramaniam sir, what is the functions of the mind?
Hariom Guruji, to see that the mind is not lost in the past or too anxious in the future, being in the now and present.
Control the anxieties and the worries.
Worries, yes.
That is one aspect of the mind, has to be controlled. That is a function of the mind. All right. Let's hear from Padmini Ma. What else you think of the mind has to be controlled? Padmini Ma.
Your desires have to be free from anything that diverts your mind away from the goal.
Desire, how do you control?
You have to stay stopped.
Oh my God. Can you please record some times, keep saying stop, stop, stop and send it to us. We will hear that and just stop. Stop, no, it will stop, huh?
No, it will keep coming, but then you have to push those thoughts away.
Can I say shut up at times? I'm telling not you, I'm telling the mind. Oh, mind, just shut up. Too much disturbance. And the mind solla mudiyuma?
Concentration in the beginning, no, it is difficult to get that the pointed concept. So the mind will be
you will be able to reach the mind one pointed only when you control the functionings of the mind.
Yes.
Means only a controlled mind can remain one pointed.
Mm.
So the question is, what are the functions of the mind you will have to control? Desires is no doubt, yes, but it's a long-term thing.
Emotions.
What you can control is the emotions that arise out of where do emotions come from?
From your desires.
Correct. So the emotions that arise out of the desires have to be contained and controlled. Don't unnecessarily go overboard with your emotions, man. Such a mind cannot meditate. All right. Rajima, what else you think of the mind should be controlled?
Guruji, the mind's two basic qualities are it being chanchal and asthira, being fickle and running, not being stable. So if we control that, then the focus can be single pointed in the seat of meditation.
Correct. You control the asthira and the chanchala, the fickleness and the restlessness nature of the mind. I hope you are jotting down all the functions which we're getting from everyone. What else, Gayatri Ma? Anything else as we control? Yes, Gayatri Ma.
Guruji, future anxieties, like what will be the thoughts that is basically about the past guilt as well as the future anxieties. If you have control over it, then it can be a little steady.
We spoke about anxieties and worries. Okay. Anything else? Which constantly consume the mind. Anything else? Sushma ji, any idea? Sushma ji? Do you know how to unmute, Ma? Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Wonderful.
Basically, I feel your emotions or your something which is worrying you. If you can, but sometimes I feel something which is worrying you, you can't help it. And I don't know how to stop it. And sometimes I feel I try to chant the Lord's name to get my mind off that worry. It helps sometimes, but it doesn't help all the time. I would like to know what to do if my mind is, that's why I come to these classes every time.
I know, you're so sincere and so dedicated. Yeah, so the question Amma is asking is, how does one go about controlling the restless mind?
I think the more you think of, I mean, my personal experience is that the more you think of helping other people and thinking of, and stop thinking about your own selfishness. I do a lot of, I'm working in a slum and do selfless work for many years. And I think that has helped me a lot to stop thinking of my personal problems and worry about, I feel other people have much greater problems than I have. and how can I help them? God has blessed me with enough wealth, and I believe I don't need all that. And that's why I want to share it with other people. But I keep telling myself that I should never get ahankar, and I should never sort of expect any gratitude. In fact, I want to be grateful because of somebody is giving me an opportunity to help. Nobody wants to lower themselves to ask another person. I wouldn't like to be in a position to ask someone else. So sometimes I feel if I can preempt somebody's needs and quietly help that person, that gives me some sort of satisfaction. And I think less about myself. And my family is settled, so I have no problem over there. And God is kind. I don't have basically any worries of that sort. So, and the more I listen to your classes, I think it is helping me a lot.
Please don't stop. Say some more, no?
I don't want to keep talking about myself.
No. In fact, I would say my prostrations to you. So touched by what you have said. It means so much for everyone. I don't think anybody could have done justice to what you have asked, and you are truly living what you have said. It speaks from the rich experience you have, and I can only say this little, that keep carrying on the good work and keep touching lives of others. That's all I can say, Ma.
Thank you, sir.
By Lord's grace, by divine grace, all will be well. It's all is well. There's nothing to, as you say, there's nothing to worry. And it's there that I can see it all on the beautiful smile you have, the genuinity you bring, and the true spirit with which you say.
I'd like to add one more thing. I'm part of another spiritual organization called Artna Trust. And Param Pujya Ma, initially when I went, there's one thing in one of her satsangs, she said, like for giving, she said, the Lord tells you your vessel is full. I want to give you more, but unless you remove something from it, how can I give you more? And that made me realize I have so much wealth. And if I give away, then only the Lord says he can give me more. And I really have experienced it in my life. And now that faith has become very great.
It's no more a faith, it's a conviction now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Amazing.
That I always feel that because I'm giving away, I don't have any less. Somehow, what my investments are or whatever, more keeps coming in, and I can keep on giving more. So that has become a conviction.
Yes, very nice. So nice. I'm so glad. So I'll keep looking forward to more inputs from you. So I'll keep engaging you more, Ma.
I'm not very articulate, so I sort of sometimes not able to express so well.
If you say so, then I will stop speaking. The way you have brought clarity to it, all would struggle to convey the spirit you have conveyed to us. So again, I say my namaskarams and prostrations to you. Hari Om. Hari Om. Hari Om. We will we'll come back to verses 12 and 13. All right. Come back. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Hari Om.